Hey there, guys. I decided I was going to add one more thing to this last video I just put up because there is one more quote that I have not addressed, and I think this one quote is a great example of the type of deception that Crazy 316 and his ilk love to pull when it comes to this topic of marriage and whether men and women are equal in the Bible, like they love to claim, even though the Bible constantly shows it's not true. And that quote is Ephesians 25, which Christians love to show off as the ultimate proof of how they view marriage. And again, before I even begin with this, I find it ridiculous that I even have to argue this, because no matter how much they try to quote from the Bible, what they're quoting is not how they act. We've seen how marriages have been produced in the Christian world throughout centuries. We know what they're like. Just by living every day, we see the evidence of what their marriages, how their marriages actually function. But never mind. Let's play the game. If you haven't heard the Ephesians 25 quote yet, let me say it. It goes, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." That's the one that they love putting forth, and it's the one that Crazy loves to throw in people's faces. See, it shows that not only are we supposed to love them, we're supposed to die for them. That shows we truly know about marriage, and we truly know how to respect the woman. Now, why do I say that this quote is a great example of the deception that bastards like him love to pull off? Well, it's because they never show you the lines that were stated before that one, and they don't tell you the lines that are stated after that one, and put it all into context. So, I'll read it all for you. I'm going to read from 22, Ephesians 22, all the way to 33. And I will put it in annotations as well, so that you guys can see and hear for yourselves the whole thing in context. Ephesians 22 to 33. Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Now we get into 25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing. Think of that for a sec. Her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. Sounds nice. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated his own body, but he feeds and cares for it, as does Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. We remember that from Matthew. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. By the way, that's the actual quote. This is a profound mystery, but I am talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. Everybody got that? That's the whole of Ephesians from 22 to 33. Chapter 5. That's everything it says on the matter of marriage. Anybody notice the different picture that it paints other than what Crazy and his idiot ilk love to spout about Ephesians 25? You see why I say that they're deceiving everybody when they don't tell you everything else that's in there? For those of you who are confused about this, let's dig into it. Notice that when it talks to the wives, they say submit to your husbands. When they're speaking to the husband, then they go love your wife. But notice in the context how you're supposed to love your wife. Just as Christ loves the church. Now many people say, oh, that's a great love because he sacrificed himself for it. But no, look closely. Christ is the king of the church. Christ is the Almighty. Everyone in the church is supposed to submit to Christ, to bow down to him, to worship him as a slave to a king. Now, what does it say about the relationship between a man and a woman? That the wife is supposed to submit to the husband just as the church is supposed to submit to Christ. She is to be his slave. It spells it out right here in the New Testament. Not the old one, by the way, for the crazy guys who love saying that's the old one. We're talking about the modern one. Well, here it is, New Testament. Ephesians chapter 5, 22 to 33. It spells out how Paul wants marriage to be. The husband, yes, is supposed to love the wife, but he's supposed to love it like a king would love his country. How a king would look after his nation, just as Christ looks after the church. And the wife, in turn, submits to her master. It's right there. Anybody with a Bible can read it and look it up. Or if you don't have one, go to Bible Gateway online and type it in yourself. And they got different translations of the Bible, so you can compare the translations in turn. It all says the same thing. You submit to the husband if you're a wife, according to Paul in Ephesians. There is nothing about equality here. None whatsoever. And also note how it states that the woman has to make herself presentable to the husband. She must be without blemish, without stain. She is to be perfect if he is to take her. There is nothing about him in regards to her other than that if she is worthy of him loving her, then he is to love her in turn and protect her even unto death. But she first must be worthy. And in that worthiness, part of that worthiness is submission. Now, we can easily turn all this around and say that, well, of course, if you're going to marry someone, they have to be worthy of you. But again, with marriage, is it more worthy, or do they just simply fit you? I thought that with a modern conception of marriage, yeah, if you're going to marry someone and love them, they have to in turn be someone who can fit with you and truly loves you back. But in here, it's nothing about whether the wife loves him, it's whether she is to submit to him, to prostrate to him, just as the church does to Christ. Again, I'm not twisting anything around or taking anything out of context here. It's right there in the parts that people like Crazy 316 don't want you to read. And I am specifically saying that. I know some people might say, oh, he's just simply been taught to just use this line and nothing else. No. The reason why I am convinced that he doesn't want you to read the rest of it is because when I was putting up quotes such as these under his video, he refused to allow them to be seen. So, think of that what you will, but I know what that says to me. He is purposely trying to deceive people. And to make matters worse, when someone like me comes along to clear this up, not only is he going to hide the truth from anyone watching his video, but he will then try to make the person who knows about the Bible look like a buffoon for his own ego. He'll insult you, say you're a fail bot, and all this other bullshit. But he will hide what the other person had to say to make himself look good. This guy is trying to make himself look righteous. He fucked with the wrong guy, because I've read the Bible. I've studied it. I lived under a Christian mother. She was a Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 9 fucking years. I had this shit pounded into my skull. You can't tell me I don't know this shit, especially when you're cherry picking and I'm going through the entire freaking chapter showing how you're wrong. You picked the wrong guy to fuck with. Because now I'm going to make sure that whenever you're out there deceiving people, I'll be there to make sure they know the true story. And I, for one, hope that sooner or later, me and other people, Christian and atheist alike, get to expose this jackass for who he is, so that he will no longer have any sort of real presence on YouTube. Deceivers and bastards like him should not be given any credence. And I'll stand by that.